Good morning, we are back. Here's the plan. It's a new work week. We don't have the biggest of crews. There were 4 missing at roll call this morning. So that leaves us with about 13, it might be 14 now. There's nobody here at the moment from the pool crew, although to be fair, Glenn from the pool crew was here yesterday. So we'll have a look and see how we're getting on with that water. There'll be more work on the White House. Certainly there'll be painting and there might be other things. There'll be a little bit more work, I imagine, on ceilings, but there's also quite a bit of attention today on drains. So we'll try and see what's going on there. We're going to probably do a little trip to try and find some roofing material for the White House, but we'll see how that goes. I'm not certain that's going to happen today. What could possibly go wrong? Monday morning. Most of you will know what this is all about, what's about to happen next. Briefing, well, prayer first, and we lead them to that. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1, 2.
There have been some quite dramatic haircuts. Erwin and Elson.
5, 6, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kendek. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Missing a couple today at least.
5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jogging. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Iron. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jumping jack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All done. Here at the increasingly White House, we've got Oliver and the haircut brothers of Erwin and Elson. Both had very smart haircuts today. And Jersley's back doing a bit more painting. So there's paintwork going on, and Oliver is still doing some welding on the door frame. I imagine that by the end of today, all the side walls will have been painted. Not yet had another conversation with the engineer about the ridge at the top, so I'll try and figure out whether that's in the plan or not. The water in the pool is very, very considerably clearer than it was on Saturday when it was almost black. However, you might be able to make out that on the floor, all the dirt has basically sunk to the bottom, and it's disgusting. There's a lot of it. So that needs cleaning up. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing any of that today because I haven't seen Glenn yet. One of the conversations we've had this morning with the engineer is, in future, as suggested by Stephen P, I think, and maybe others, how do we fill this pool with the water going through the filters first to try and keep some of this gunk out? So that's something we're going to have to look into, see if that's possible. There have been a number of comments, and thank you for those, about what else we might do with helping to clean this, and that includes a heavy dosing of chlorine and some other suggestions that we'll take a look at later on today. On the north side of the house, up against the wall, we've got this drainage pipe going in. It's a 6-inch PVC pipe, and as it goes in, probably just saw with a paintbrush, our plumber is using this PVC pipe cement to join each section. This pipe is going to go all the way down to the front of the house, so take a dizzy pill. They've already got it in place down to the carport and storage room, and in fact it already extends underneath. They did that before they built the carport on top. Then it will continue all the way down to the road. Then we have a bit of an issue because there is no mains sewage here. So I'm still not entirely sure whether we're just going to effectively dump it out by the side of the road, which I imagine is what everybody else down here does, or if there's any other plan. We'll find out, maybe not today, but in a while. Inside, we have got original Rico working with new Richard, who seems to have developed a habit of disappearing every time I switch on the camera. I don't think it's camera shyness, but he's just wandered off into another room to get some more materials. So they are working, or will be working, inside the dirty kitchen here, putting in the frame for that ceiling. And Bapajess, on-site electrician, looks like he's pulling more guide wires through the ceiling here. Just to prove that he does exist, there's new Richard, putting in more frames for the platform that they're working on. Over at the carport and storage room, no activity. The last message I got from the solar power people was that they are coming in today to put in the batteries and hook everything up. But I mentioned in a previous video, they have to come down from Manila. So they've got quite a journey to come down here, and traffic can at times be horrible. So we certainly don't expect them to be here very early. I'm hoping though that they do come at some point. I'd love to see that system finished. Something that the builder mentioned to me a few days ago was that when the solar power is installed, they can probably simply run a cable over to this smaller house, the one that we're living in most of the time at the moment, and give us solar power over there, at least on a temporary basis. Longer term, I'm sure that's not practical. There'll be too many draws on power in the new house. But on a temporary basis, that would be marvellous if we could get predominantly solar power used here. It's a little bit before 8, and it was around 7:40. The pool guys came in, which is roughly normal for those guys. They usually, if they do come in, they're usually around 7:30 to 8 o'clock. So they are working on cleaning out the gunk from the pool with the underwater vacuum cleaner and a manual mop and kind of a netting to scoop out the larger particles. So that's hopefully going to make a little bit of difference today. We've also got Coelito digging out the concrete that kind of got left behind inside these planting holes, and we've asked them to do that today because we've bought the plants. I'll show you those a little later. It's not what we originally had in mind because we couldn't find what we originally had in mind, but I'll show you what we do have. A little while ago they were draining some of the water out, and I'm not sure how accurately the camera will show what it is that came out, but it is disgusting. It was really quite a dark brown that was coming out of that small blue pipe over there, and they ran this for 15 minutes maybe, and when it first came out, oh my goodness, it was horrible. And even when it was almost done coming out, it was still horrible. So it just shows how much dirt was in there. And I do wonder, as somebody has mentioned, whether we already need to change the filters, because they're trying to deal with so much dirt. Again, it's hard to know how clearly this will come out, but in this area they've not used the underwater vacuum cleaner yet, and in this area they have. And it does quickly make a big difference. The trouble is, there's just so much dirt in the water that probably going around once might not be enough. Hopefully, by the end of today, it does look a lot better. But as we saw before, one of the things that going through with that vacuum cleaner does is it does stir it up and it mixes into the water. So then you've got to let it settle again and then do it again. And all the time the filters inside the pump room are trying to do their job. It's just a slow process. They were adding more chlorine this morning as well, but it is a painfully slow process. I guess it's our fault. The pool's large. It takes a lot of effort to get all of the dirt out of a pool this big. We also had this morning a couple of the roofing guys have come back in. One here and one up on top. And I believe they're just trying to add a little bit of additional pipe to the downspouts in some areas to try and direct the rainwater a little bit. They're not putting the full downspouts in yet, as far as I know, but they're just trying to redirect some of that water a little bit away from the house. At least that's what I believe they're doing. We will again find out more by the end of the day. It's just after lunch and we'll start here in the dirty kitchen. Richard is assembling the metal frame. And take a dizzy pill. Rico's cutting everything to size, drilling holes, doing whatever he has to do before it gets assembled. The drainage is now done down, I think, to and beyond the carport. And what's going on now is they're attaching the connection into the septic tank, or one of the two septic tanks that we will ultimately have, which is, if you've watched before, under here. So they're just creating an access point for the pipes to go in there and then join up with the drainage. Our greenhouse is very nearly all white. Still this area of the roof to go, and a little bit on this end, but it's mostly done. The estimate is, with all the other little bits of work that needs to be done, a little bit more welding you can see maybe Oliver is doing over there, probably they'll finish the frame on Wednesday. We did have a change of plan about the roof. The polycarbonate sheet we were talking about, it's just too much money. So the builder has spoken to his roofing guys, the guys that were in this morning. They're going to look at some other plastic sheeting, probably around about 2mm thick. The sizes that are offered, I'm told, are the smallest is a 1.2mm, but that is very thin. So the next one up, I think, is a 1.9mm thickness. So we're going to wait and see what they come up with in terms of a quote for that. That still leaves us with all the netting that we required, the shade cloth across the top and the netting down the side. But honestly, that can come a little bit later. But this is getting close. The roofing guys that came in this morning, I think I misunderstood. I'm still not entirely sure, but I think what they were looking at was whether they needed to add any more downspouts. Because on this fairly flat roof, they were a little concerned that the amount of water coming down was just going to overwhelm the gutter. So I think they're going to look at that. And we did also talk about putting wire mesh across the top of the gutter to stop it getting blocked. Because this morning, when they were up there, I did notice that they were doing a little bit of cleaning of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what they were doing. But we suddenly then started seeing more water coming down a couple of these downspouts. So I can only assume that there was some sort of blockage already. We might try and get up a little closer at some point to see if we can tell now whether it's all clear. But I think some kind of wire mesh across the top of all of the gutter all the way around the outside probably makes sense. The holes beds, this one here and one just to my right, have been cleared out. So we're going to have to dig a little bit of this out, probably put in a little bit of compost and probably a little bit of rice hulls that they use in a lot of the nurseries here, plant nurseries. We were at a plant nursery yesterday, which is where we got the trees, not about 20-30 minutes drive from here. And one thing I have noticed here is the nurseries use rice hulls a lot to grow seedlings. They plant the seedlings into small holders to begin with, but as far as I can tell, 80 or 90% rice hulls, just a little bit of soil. We're not going to go quite that far. We will mix compost and the rice hulls together and put it in here along with some of the existing dirt. I've seen on other videos of gardening channels specifically where they've said don't use compost when you're planting fruit trees, for example, unless you use compost over a very big area, because it will just encourage roots to stay within the compost rather than branch out into the native soil. But here we actually want the roots to stay smaller. We don't want them branching out, because then they'll put pressure on the walls of the pool. So actually using compost just around where the roots are themselves, probably going to help to reduce the desire of these trees to get massively bigger. We'll see if that works out. It's a nice theory. It's very nearly the end of the workday, and here at the White House it is almost entirely white now. There's the door frame, a little bit at the top there and a little bit down the far end that still hasn't had any paint put on it, but we're getting whited. Very close to being done. I imagine this, they're saying it's not going to be ready till Wednesday because there'll be another coat of paint to go on here. But the first coat, the undercoat, if that's what it is, very nearly finished. And we've even got a door handle now. Here was where they were digging the drainage trench into the septic tank. It's all covered up. Finished here. And then they started over here. So a new trench going in here, and we're starting to get a lot of the PPR pipe down the side of the house. The dirty kitchen. The ceiling frame is come on a long way in a day, with just 2 guys working on it. Not sure if that's finished. It actually, no, there's a couple more struts I think they have to put in, but it looks to me like it's pretty close to being done. They've got all of the shorter struts down the side on the lower section of the ceiling, and I think there might be just 1 or 2 more to put in the main section. The pool is looking very significantly better than it did first thing this morning. There are still some silt on the floor. I guess as the day's gone on, it's slowly drifting downwards and the water above is getting clearer. So I imagine there'll be at least 1 more day of going over with the underwater vacuum cleaner. But it's looking much, much, much better. Hopefully it's really not too far away from a point at which the family can go for a swim. We didn't get the plants in. We decided that it was better to do it later in the day, so I think that's our next task. Once I've got this thing in and edited, I think we'll come back and see if we can get 1 or both of these plants done. That is the end of the day in which we thought we were going to get the solar power batteries installed, but that's now tomorrow. And quite a lot of other stuff was going on here, despite the fact that we are down to that crew size, generally speaking, of around 17 on a full crew day, and we were missing those 4 this morning. I think we were still missing 4 later on. So they got quite a lot done. We did of course have the pool crew in, although it was relatively a short time they were here. We had the guys up on the roof. Again, for quite a short time. So I still don't know for certain whether it was about adding more downspouts I know that one other thing they were looking at was putting more sealant around some of the areas, I think predominantly where the screws were. But I'm not sure if they've done anything else with more downspouts. But tomorrow, hopefully a day closer to swimming. Hopefully a day of solar power. At least the batteries, maybe the whole system. See you then.